Why do women obsess over the man who doesn't chase, doesn't cling, doesn't even seem to need them? What if the deepest desire is triggered not by attention, by absence? In this video, we're unraveling the uncomfortable truth behind modern attraction and exposing why the most magnetic men are those who remain free. To understand why women are drawn to rare men who do not need them, it is essential to grasp the nature of freedom as it exists in the deepest recesses of human consciousness. This freedom is not merely the capacity to choose between options or to act according to one's desires. It is a radical, unsettling freedom that defines the very structure of existence itself. It is the freedom of being, of existing without the crutches of dependency, expectation, pretense. The rare man embodies this freedom not as an abstract ideal, but as a living, breathing reality. He does not lean on others for meaning, affirmation, or identity. He chooses to be in the purest sense for himself. In a world saturated with attachments and needs, where identity often feels tethered to the gaze or approval of another, such freedom is both shocking and magnetic. Most men approach relationships as if they were bargaining chips in a game where affection must be earned and where the lack of it signals failure or inadequacy. They seek security through possession, hoping to bind another's love as if it were a guarantee against loneliness or insignificance. But this need, however disguised, betrays them. It reveals a fracture within, a fissure where the self has been split and lost. The rare man, in contrast, exists as an autonomous being who refuses to outsource his wholeness. His freedom means he does not require love to justify his existence. He is not incomplete without it. This absence of need is not indifference or emotional numbness, but a profound acknowledgement of the absurdity and contingency of life. He understands that every relationship, every attachment, is a choice made freely, rather than an obligation demanded by necessity. And it is in this awareness that his strength lies. To grasp this radical freedom is to recognize the profound difference between choosing and needing. Needing implies a lack, a void to be filled, and a dependency that demands fulfillment from outside oneself. Choosing, on the other hand, acknowledges the void, but does not surrender to it. It embraces the possibility that one might walk alone, that one might face abandonment without crumbling into despair. This is the existential act par excellence, the acceptance of solitude without escape, the embrace of contingency without despair. The rare man embodies this acceptance. He moves through the world untethered from the compulsions that bind most others. He is not chained to the expectations of what love should be or the fears of what it might lack. Instead, he inhabits a space of radical self-possession, where his decisions are his own and his value is not derived from another's presence. This self-possession is a kind of sovereignty, inner kingdom where he rules without subjects, where his worth is self-decreed and unchallengeable. In the eyes of many, this may appear as arrogance or aloofness, but it is something deeper. It is the refusal to negotiate one's existence on the terms of dependency. It is the awareness that life is a series of encounters, none guaranteed, and that the ultimate freedom lies in choosing to engage with others without being defined or diminished by the outcome. Such freedom is not comfortable. It demands constant vigilance and honesty. It demands that one confront the emptiness at the core of being without flinching. For the rare man, this confrontation has been made. He has looked into the abyss and chosen to remain standing, unbowed and unbound. And in doing so, he transcends the common patterns of relationship where love is mistaken for possession and affection for security. His relationships are not contracts or dependencies, but acts of grace, moments of chosen presence that honor the freedom of both parties. This radical freedom also means that he is not predictable. He does not respond to external pressures with compliance or desperation. He does not chase or plead or demand. Instead, his freedom manifests as an indifference to neediness, a refusal to give his energy away, except where it is freely welcomed and reciprocated. This detachment is not coldness but strength. It is a power that quietly commands attention, not through words or gestures, but through the sheer force of being. It is this quality that draws women, because it mirrors an existential truth that many are unwilling to face, that the deepest attraction arises not from filling a need, but from the recognition of freedom. When a man is free, he becomes a mirror to the freedom within the woman herself. inviting her to see beyond the roles of dependency and desire, to glimpse the possibility of being whole on her own terms. The rare man's freedom is a challenge and an invitation, a paradox that unsettles and entices. In a world where so many seek connection through attachment, the rare man offers something more profound: the possibility of a union, not born from necessity, from choice. This union is not fragile because it depends on need, but resilient because it respects the autonomy of each individual. It is a relationship where love is not a refuge but a celebration of freedom, where two beings meet not to complete each other, but to share their wholeness. This understanding reshapes the very dynamics of attraction. The neediness that once seemed inevitable now appears as a limitation, bondage to fear and insecurity. The rare man transcends this by existing beyond the need for affirmation. He is not a fragment seeking completion, but a whole being capable of embracing solitude and companionship alike without losing himself. This is the essence of the radical freedom that defines the rare man. The freedom to be without needing to become. It is a freedom that disrupts expectations, redefines relationships, and reveals the true nature of desire. To be drawn to such a man is to be drawn to the very possibility of freedom itself, to the terrifying and exhilarating prospect of standing fully alone and yet choosing to stand together. At the heart of human existence lies a fundamental tension between two modes of being. On one side is the state of being for others, where the self is defined primarily through the gaze, judgment, and validation of other people. On the other side is being for itself, the mode of authentic existence in which the individual asserts their freedom, awareness, and responsibility, independent of external recognition. This dichotomy reveals itself most starkly in the realm of relationships, where many men fall into the trap of defining their worth by how they are perceived and valued by women, while the rare man lives his existence as an end in itself, unbound by the need for external affirmation. The man who exists for others is trapped in a continuous performance. His identity becomes a reflection of the expectations and desires of those around him, particularly women, whose approval he desperately seeks. His sense of self is fragile, constructed like a house of cards, relying on constant reinforcement from the outside world to maintain stability. Every glance, every word, every gesture becomes a measure of his worth or failure. He does not live freely. He lives in the shadow of another's gaze, yearning to be seen in a way that will satisfy his need for belonging and acceptance. This state of existence is a kind of imprisonment because it sacrifices the self's autonomy for the comfort of being recognized. It reduces the man to an object of desire, a thing to be possessed or validated. He becomes being for others in the most literal sense. His being is contingent upon how others see him, shaping his thoughts, feelings, and actions to fit the roles demanded by those external forces. The irony is that in trying to be everything to everyone, he loses himself entirely, becoming invisible to the very self he once sought to express. Contrasting this is the rare man who embodies being for itself, a mode of existence characterized by self-awareness and freedom from the tyranny of the other's gaze. This man refuses to let his identity be dictated by how he is perceived. He is conscious of the gaze, certainly, but he does not submit to it. Instead, he stands as a subject before the world, an agent of his own choices, responsible for his own essence, rather than defined by external expectations. Being for itself is not merely an act of rebellion. It is an existential condition marked by the realization that the self is not fixed or given, but continually created through authentic choices. This man understands that his identity is fluid, open, and self-determined. He does not look to a woman to complete or define him. Rather, he approaches relationships as encounters between two free beings, each fully responsible for their own existence. This distinction is crucial in understanding the dynamic that makes the rare man so compelling. Women are drawn not to a man who craves their validation or who appears incomplete without their approval, but to one who is sovereign in his being, one who is whole, not because he has been made so by others, but because he has embraced his own freedom and created himself accordingly. The rare man's presence speaks of a self-possession that cannot be borrowed or stolen. It must be earned through courage, honesty, and a willingness to face the absurdity of existence without illusions. The rare man's being for itself means he navigates relationships with a clarity that most cannot match. He does not seek to be rescued or saved by love, nor does he try to rescue or save others. His love is not an act of filling a void, but a celebration of shared freedom. When he chooses to engage with a woman, it is because he freely wants to, not because he needs to. This freedom creates a powerful magnetism, transcends the desperation and insecurity that often underlie romantic pursuit. By refusing to collapse into being for others, this man preserves his autonomy and his integrity. He does not change his essence to fit someone else's desire, nor does he expect anyone else to do the same. Instead, he invites connection on the basis of mutual respect for each other's freedom and individuality. This approach redefines attraction. It is no longer about possession or control, but about encounter and recognition of the other as a free subject. The rare man's being for itself also means that he accepts the responsibility of freedom. He knows that with freedom comes anguish, the knowledge that he alone must choose his path, that no external force can provide ultimate meaning or security. This awareness can be terrifying, which is why so many men retreat into being for others. It is easier to hide behind the approval of others than to stand alone in one's freedom. Yet the rare man embraces this solitude, knowing it is the price of authenticity. His freedom is reflected in his refusal to manipulate or coerce others to stay in his life. He does not cling or beg. He accepts that relationships may be temporary and that departure is as natural as arrival. This acceptance is not cold detachment, but a mature understanding of human existence as inherently contingent and unpredictable. Women, often unconsciously, recognize this depth of being. They sense the difference between a man who needs them and one who simply chooses them. The former demands attention and reassurance. The latter offers presence and possibility. The rare man's authenticity challenges conventional notions of love as dependency and invites a new understanding. One where freedom, not need, becomes the foundation of attraction. In this way, the rare man lives as a beacon of possibility, proof that one can exist fully, freely, and without surrendering to the gaze of others. His being, for itself, is an existential assertion of dignity in a world that often demands conformity and submission. And it is this assertion that makes him not only rare but profoundly desirable. His refusal to be an object for others' projections means he is unpredictable, mysterious, and alive in a way that captivates. Where most men seek to secure love through submission, he secures it through sovereignty. This sovereignty is not a fortress that isolates, but a space that invites genuine encounter without dependence. To live as being for itself is to live at the edge of possibility, to risk loneliness for the sake of authenticity, to choose freedom over comfort, to embrace the unknown rather than cling to certainty. It is a difficult path, but one that leads to a kind of magnetism that cannot be fabricated or faked. The struggle between authenticity and bad faith is a defining conflict within the human experience, particularly visible in the realm of relationships and attraction. It is a battle that unfolds quietly beneath the surface of everyday interactions, but determines the quality and depth of human connection. The rare man, who attracts not because he needs, but because he chooses, stands on the side of authenticity, a commitment to living truthfully in the face of life's absurdity. Those who fall into bad faith, in contrast, deceive themselves to escape the responsibility and anguish that accompany genuine freedom. This self-deception, though comforting, renders them invisible to true connection and ultimately unfulfilled. Authenticity means embracing oneself without illusion or evasion. It is the courageous acknowledgement of who one is, flaws, fears, desires, and all, without masking these truths to please others or to gain approval. This is no easy path, for it requires confronting the raw and sometimes uncomfortable reality of existence. The authentic man does not pretend to be more than he is, nor does he construct false narratives about his value or intentions. Presence is honest and unguarded, a reflection of his acceptance of both his limitations and potential. Bad faith, on the other hand, is the great lie we tell ourselves to avoid the burden of freedom. It is a denial of responsibility, a surrender to external definitions and expectations. Men who live in bad faith often wear masks: the mask of confidence hiding insecurity, the mask of affection hiding manipulation, or the mask of control hiding fear. They seek to be loved not as they are, but as they pretend to be. This performance may succeed temporarily. It ultimately breeds dissatisfaction, for it is rooted in inauthenticity. In relationships, bad faith manifests as neediness and desperation masked as affection. The man in bad faith depends on the woman to validate his existence, to fill a void within himself that he refuses to acknowledge. He fears solitude and therefore clings to connection, not out of genuine desire, but from a compulsion to avoid confronting his own freedom. His actions are governed by avoidance rather than engagement. His love is transactional rather than transformative. The rare man's authenticity is a radical rejection of this cycle. He acknowledges the absurdity of seeking absolute certainty or permanence in relationships, yet he remains committed to genuine connection. His love is an act of will, not an escape from self. He does not love to complete himself, but to share himself, freely and fully, without coercion or pretense. This honesty in being disarms and attracts because it resonates with a fundamental human desire to be seen and accepted in truth. Authenticity requires the rare man to face the anxiety of freedom head-on. To live authentically is to live with the knowledge that he alone is responsible for defining his essence. There is no script to follow, no predetermined role to play. Every choice is his, and with each choice comes the weight of consequence. This awareness can be paralyzing, is why many choose bad faith, the comforting illusion that they are defined by their circumstances, by the opinions of others, or by societal roles. But the rare man embraces this responsibility. His refusal to flee into bad faith allows him to maintain his integrity and presence, qualities that set him apart in the chaotic landscape of modern relationships. His authenticity is a form of strength, not weakness, a quiet confidence rooted in the acceptance of uncertainty and impermanence. It is this strength that makes him rare and deeply attractive. This authenticity also means that he does not manipulate or control. Unlike those caught in bad faith who use affection as a tool to secure safety or dominance, the authentic man respects the freedom of both himself and the woman he encounters. His love is an offering, not a demand. He does not seek to possess or bind, but to connect and share. This distinction transforms the dynamic of attraction from one of power struggle to one of mutual recognition. The tension between authenticity and bad faith is often invisible to the casual observer, but is palpably felt by those who encounter the rare man. Women sense when a man's affection is sincere, when his vulnerability is not a ploy, but a genuine expression of self. This sensing creates a deep resonance that goes beyond superficial charm or conventional attractiveness. It is the pull of something real and unshakable in a world of facades and false promises. Yet authenticity is not static or absolute. It is a continuous process of becoming, a daily commitment to confront one's own illusions and to choose truth over comfort. The rare man understands that he will falter, that moments of bad faith may creep in, but he does not allow these moments to define him. Instead, he returns again and again to the hard but liberating path of authenticity. This path is lonely at times, for it means standing apart from those who seek security in dependency or distraction. It demands courage to face rejection, to risk solitude, to remain open despite the pain of impermanence. The rare man's journey is one of self-discovery as much as it is of connection. His ability to love without need is born from the fierce acceptance of his own existence as a free and singular being. In rejecting bad faith, he also rejects the common patterns of manipulation and control that often underpin relationships founded on neediness. He does not bargain or compromise his truth for the sake of acceptance. His love is not a transaction but a gift, given without expectation and without demand. This freedom creates a space where love can flourish without suffocation, where two beings can meet as equals rather than as savior and saved. The rare man's authenticity becomes a mirror, in which the woman can see her own freedom reflected. It challenges her to recognize her own capacity for truth and courage, to move beyond the familiar roles of dependence and validation. This mutual recognition is the foundation of a relationship built not on need but on choice, not on escape but on presence. In this way, authenticity is both a personal and relational revolution. It disrupts the conventional scripts of love and attraction and invites a radical reimagining of what it means to connect with another human being. The rare man's commitment to authenticity is the cornerstone of his rare magnetism, a magnetism born not from superficial charm or manipulation, but from the power of being true in a world that often encourages deceit. Within the complex terrain of human relationships lies a paradox that both defines and confounds attraction, the simultaneous presence of desire and independence. This paradox is embodied most vividly in the rare man, one who desires connection but is fiercely independent, who is open to intimacy yet never desperate for it. Understanding this paradox reveals why such men are so compelling to women and why conventional approaches to love and need often fail. Desire at its core is a fundamental aspect of human existence. It is the restless call toward something beyond oneself, a movement of reaching, longing, and seeking. Yet desire is not simply a craving born of lack or incompleteness. It is a dynamic force that propels the individual beyond mere survival into the realm of meaning and connection. The rare man experiences desire not as a demand that must be fulfilled to alleviate emptiness, but as an expression of his freedom to choose, to invite, to welcome, but never to require. The paradox emerges because genuine desire requires freedom, and freedom cannot coexist with neediness. When a man depends on a woman to satisfy his desires as a necessity, he sacrifices his independence. His desire becomes a demand, and this demand breeds anxiety, control, and attachment. It transforms the relationship into a transaction weighted by obligation and expectation, rather than a free encounter between autonomous beings. The rare man, however, inhabits the space where desire and independence coexist without contradiction. He desires connection and intimacy, yet he remains whole and sovereign in his being, whether or not that desire is reciprocated. His independence is not a barrier to desire, but its foundation. Because he is not driven by need, his desire is an offering, an invitation to share rather than a plea for rescue. This balance is difficult to achieve and even more difficult to maintain. Society often teaches men that their value is tied to their ability to attract and retain women, that love is a conquest or possession to be won and held. The man who is truly independent disrupts this narrative. He refuses to stake his worth on the approval or presence of another. Instead, he understands that his being is sufficient unto itself. From this place of sufficiency, his desire takes on a different quality, less desperate, more radiant. The paradox extends further. The rare man's independence makes him unpredictable and therefore deeply attractive. His openness to connection is not guaranteed. It is conditional on freedom and mutual respect. This unpredictability is unsettling to those who expect love to be a safe haven secured by dependency. Yet it is precisely this uncertainty that creates the space for genuine intimacy. When desire is free from the chains of need, it becomes alive with possibility. Women, often attuned to the subtle dynamics of power and freedom in relationships, sense this paradox intuitively. They are drawn to the rare man not because he is detached or indifferent, but because he embodies a freedom that challenges and invites. His independence is not rejection, it is the affirmation of his own existence, and paradoxically, an invitation to share in that existence without domination or surrender. The rare man's paradoxical stance also transforms his approach to vulnerability. Vulnerability is often seen as weakness or neediness, but for him, it is an authentic expression of self. Because he does not rely on others to complete him, he can reveal his inner world without fear of losing himself. This openness does not mean abandoning independence, but embracing it fully by showing that freedom and intimacy are not mutually exclusive. Desire, therefore, is not a call to dependency, but a recognition of shared freedom. It is the acknowledgement that to love is to risk losing oneself and to find oneself simultaneously. The rare man knows that desire is an act of faith. Faith in himself, in the other, and in the possibility of connection that honors both freedom and need. This paradox highlights a profound truth about attraction, that what is most compelling is not the fulfillment of need, but the celebration of freedom within desire. The rare man's ability to hold these opposing forces in balance creates a magnetic tension that draws others toward him. It is a tension charged with possibility, promise, and the thrill of authentic encounter. Balance also calls into question conventional wisdom about what women want. It suggests that what women truly desire is not a man who depends on them for validation or survival, but one who chooses them freely from a place of strength and completeness. The rare man's independence does not diminish his capacity to love, it enhances it by removing the distortions of need and fear. In this way, the paradox of desire and independence is not just a feature of individual men, but a fundamental dynamic of human relationships. It challenges simplistic notions of love as possession or rescue, and invites a deeper understanding of connection as an encounter between free beings. The rare man lives this paradox fully, embodying the truth that to desire and to be independent are not contradictions, but complementary aspects of authentic existence. His presence disrupts the familiar patterns of attachment and control that define so many relationships. Instead of seeking to possess or be possessed, he offers the possibility of connection grounded in freedom and choice. This offering is both fragile and powerful, a delicate balance that can only be sustained through ongoing self-awareness and courage. To embrace this paradox is to embrace the full complexity of human desire and the freedom that makes genuine connection possible. It is to accept that love is not a refuge from solitude, but a courageous leap into it, knowing that one can stand alone yet choose to stand together. In the end, the truth that emerges is unsettling yet liberating. The men who truly captivate, who inspire desire not out of desperation, but from a place of profound freedom, are those who do not need others to define them. They stand as sovereign beings, embracing their existence without illusion, accepting the responsibility of their own freedom, and daring to desire without dependence. This rare posture, this delicate balance of authenticity, independence, and honest desire, is not a strategy to be learned or a role to be played. It is a way of being that demands courage, self-awareness, and a relentless commitment to truth. Women are drawn to this authenticity because it offers something rare and real, a relationship not born of need or fear, but of choice and mutual respect. The paradox of desire and independence, the tension between being for itself and being for others, and the ongoing battle against bad faith reveal the essence of what makes a man truly irresistible, not what he demands, but what he freely gives, not what he clings to, but what he stands firm in. To embody this truth is to live beyond the familiar scripts of attraction and love, to exist fully and freely in a world that often pressures us into conformity and dependence. It is a path of solitude and connection intertwined, a path that only the rarest men dare to walk, and that, in doing so, reveals the most profound depths of human relationship.